Ruben Brekelmans is Defense Minister of the Netherlands. Welcome to our program, Minister Brekelmans.
Thank you.
I would like to begin our discussion with Donald Trump's statements on Ukraine. US President Trump said that the war should be ended, should be finished by a deal. Vladimir Putin is destroying Russia by not making a deal. Also, Pete Hegseth, US Secretary of Defense, said that the deal should be made in the nearest future. Do you believe that Trump has enough power to force Vladimir Putin to negotiate in good faith, to agree with a ceasefire proposal, for example?
We need to see. So far, Putin hasn't shown any intention to negotiate. He's only projecting more aggression. We saw again this morning air attacks on Kiev, yesterday as well, a big wave of air attacks. And we need to make sure that Ukraine gets into a position of strength, because otherwise Ukraine would be the party at the negotiation table who is asking. And then, of course, we all know that if you are the asking party, then you need to compromise. And we don't want Ukraine to compromise because we need a strong deal. First and foremost, to have enduring peace in Ukraine, but also to discourage any further aggression in Ukraine, in Europe, and in the rest of the world. So we need to further reinforce and further strengthen Ukraine first, to make sure that Putin feels pressured to get to the negotiation table.
Also, yes, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth says that European allies, he suggested that they could deploy European peacekeeping forces to properly enforce a ceasefire line. In case of a ceasefire deal, American troops will not be deployed. Is it possible to properly conduct a peacekeeping mission in Ukraine throughout such long front lines without American troops on the ground?
I heard Secretary Hegseth say that he wants a robust security guarantees for Ukraine, and I agree with that. If we have only weak solutions, then Russia will use that time to rebuild its military and then to attack Ukraine at a later point again. So we need to have those robust security guarantees, and we now need to discuss among each other how would those robust security guarantees, what can they look like? And I think it's better to first discuss this among allies to make sure that we have a shared position on this than to have this discussion openly, because Putin is watching us. And he then knows also what the position of the different allies is. And he also knows then, what can I bring in, and put forward at the negotiation table. So I think security guarantees must be robust, because otherwise we will have new Russian aggression. We need to avoid that. But we first need to make sure that we get to a joint position on what does robust security guarantees, what would that look like.
Also, would your country be ready to play a kind of a significant role in providing Ukraine with security guarantees right now? And what is the state of this big discussion about security guarantees? Do you see any kind of progress in this matter?
I think the discussion is still in an early phase. So, of course, allies are having discussions among each other. What could potential security guarantees look like? What could be the contribution of each country? I think it's too early now to be more specific. And also for the Netherlands, so far we have been very willing to support Ukraine in many ways. We have been a front runner, for example, with the delivery of the F-16s, but also with Patriots and other weapon systems. If we talk about security guarantees, I think it really depends on how that looks like. So, of course, we've always said that we don't want any boots on the ground, because we don't want to get into a direct confrontation with Russia. Of course, now the discussion is not to have boots on the ground to fight, but to have maybe boots on the ground to enforce peace. So that's a different discussion. But for me, it's too early to say now what our position is, because we are still in an early phase of developing any potential plans and also to coordinate this among allies.
And so you don't know still, would your country be ready, for example, to commit troops for a peacekeeping mission? It's still being discussed right now.
Yes, because it depends on what a potential ceasefire, would that look like. Also, as I said, the security guarantees, what would that mean? What would that entail? Of course, you always want to have escalation dominance. So there are still many things that need to be discussed first among allies. We should not do this openly. We should do this in a closed room among each other. And if there is a clear plan, then of course I can also have a discussion within the Netherlands. What is our view on that plan? But as I said, we are still in an early phase of this discussion.
Also, the Ramstein meeting has just been finished in the NATO headquarters. How did it go, and did you have a chance to communicate with Pete Hegseth, U.S. Secretary of Defense?
So I think it was clearly visible that there is alignment on the fact that you can only get peace through strength, and Ukraine needs to be reinforced by military support in the short term. All countries, including the Netherlands, we discussed what we are doing at this point, how we could do more. So, for example, we as the Netherlands, we are delivering the F-16s, but not only the fighter jets, we deliver the full package, so also ammunition, spare parts, training, everything. We are delivering drones. We have a big action plan on drones, but also all sorts of other ammunition. We announced that we are, for example, delivering more armed vehicles, and we will deliver more ammunition and other things in the future as well. I saw a clear willingness among allies to continue the support, also to step up the support where possible, to scale up the production that is needed to get that support. So I think there was a strong level of unity and also a determination to do what is necessary to keep supporting Ukraine.
Do you expect the United States to continue military support for Ukraine, or instead to provide Ukraine with weapons which would be purchased by the European allies? As there was a publication on Reuters that US is pushing European countries to buy weapons from the US for Ukraine.
You need to ask the US. Of course, I cannot speak on behalf of the United States. I think so far we have seen that over the last couple of weeks and months, a lot has been delivered, also from the United States. I think that's very positive. We need to continue to do that. As I said, we need to produce more because it has, from a war of delivery, basically, or from delivery, it has become more a war of production. So we need to do more in Europe. Also in the United States, production should go up. And I think, Ukraine is fighting a very first battle every day. And we should not have discussions about where is the production exactly taking place because so much is needed. I think we all need to scale up. And economically, we will all benefit from it. It will lead to more jobs in the United States, more jobs in the EU, because we need that economic power also to sustain our military power.
Your government has just provided Ukraine with another F-16 jets. What are the next plans in the matter of air capabilities? And Ukraine, do you plan to provide another fighter aircraft for the armed forces of Ukraine?
We will deliver more F-16s. And as I said, we will not only deliver the fighter jets, but the full package that is needed to keep the F-16s in the air. It requires quite some maintenance. It requires spare parts, also training, not only training of pilots, but also training of technicians. We set up a training center in Romania, together with Romania European Training Center, in which Ukrainian pilots are trained. We are also training Ukrainian engineers to make sure that they can maintain the F-16 fighter jets. So we will continue to do all of that to make sure that the F-16s remain operable. I won't share much details in terms of numbers and exact date of delivery because we don't want to inform Putin. And we know, of course, that the F-16s are also seen by Russia as a potential target to attack. So we don't want to inform them more than what they already know.
Just mentioned about Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, so you're confident that he is not interested in meaningful negotiations right now?
We need to wait and see. So far, I've mostly seen aggression from the Russian side than willingness to negotiate. And of course, we have also seen in the past, maybe Putin or some of his comrades are willing to sit at the table. But sitting at the table is different than negotiating, because when you negotiate, you also need to make compromises. And we need to wait and see. Of course, we need to put more pressure on Russia, both by sanctions, but also military pressure to get them at the table. And if then Putin and Russia are willing to compromise, we need to wait and see.
But would it be enough only to impose additional sanctions and to decrease the prices for oil around the globe, as, for example, President Trump has suggested he's confident that sanctions and the influence on oil prices could really force Vladimir Putin to negotiate in good faith. Would it be enough?
It's hard for me to say. Of course, we need to impose new sanctions. I think it's even more important that we enforce sanctions and that we make sure that sanctions are not circumvented by Russia. Of course, we do see that the war is putting a big strain on their economy. And the reason why Putin is able to continue the war is because he has alternative sources of income, and he is able to sell oil and gas to other countries in the world, and also to circumvent the sanctions that we imposed on Russia. And I think if we can further hit their main source of income, of course their economy would get into more trouble than it already is. If that leads to a different military posture, I don't know, because we also know that Russia and the Russian people are willing to make sacrifices. That's what they are currently doing, and that's what they have done in the past as well. But we also know that if we put the Russian economy, the Russian military, and also Putin under pressure, then he might be more willing to compromise. And that's what we need. We need compromises by Russia. We don't need compromises by Ukraine.
And do you feel that Trump's administration really understands that?
I think so, because I heard President Trump also say that more pressure should be put on Putin, that sanctions are needed, the enforcement of sanctions is needed. And I agree with that statement.
On the other hand, he excluded providing direct military support for Ukraine and also suggested that European allies should play a bigger role in that. But would Europe be able to support Ukraine without American role in that?
I don't think it's that black and white. So, of course, the US needs to decide to what degree they are willing to continue. But so far, I've seen that there's a lot is been delivered from the United States still. And I agree, we as European countries, we should do more. I do see a big difference among European countries in terms of how much they deliver to Ukraine. And we as the Netherlands, we have delivered 3 billion a year, roughly speaking. It's 0.3% of our GDP, I think, which is quite substantial. And I hope that other countries are also willing and able to step up. I've seen many countries do that, many European countries, but we need to have everyone on board because in the end it's affecting the security of all of us. So it's also in our joint interest to make sure that Ukraine is not losing, but that Ukraine is in a strong position and to be able to negotiate peace through strength.
And my last question for you about security guarantees and NATO membership. Is there a chance to deter the future aggression from Russia to Ukraine without inviting Ukraine to join NATO, only by providing some kind of other security guarantees?
I think we need to make a distinction between the very short term and maybe the medium term. So last July in Washington, 32 allies said that Ukraine is on an unreversible path towards NATO membership. I agree, of course. As the Netherlands, we also signed that, and I very much support that. But in the very short term, for example, this year, if we talk about security guarantees to Ukraine, as I said, we need to define how we can create robust security guarantees and how can we do that as allies and friends of Ukraine. And of course, NATO membership would potentially, in theory, would be one of the options. But we have seen it also from Sweden and others. For Sweden, even it took more than 1.5 years to get to NATO membership. So if you want to have something in the shorter term, you maybe get to a different definition of what robust security guarantees are. So we have quite some work to do to make sure that we all get on the same page when it comes to how can we create those security guarantees.
Thank you, Minister Rekelmans, for your time and for your support for Ukraine, and glory to Ukraine.
Thank you very much. Slava Ukraine.
Героям слава. Thank you.